course, I care about you succeeding, but I need you to care more about what you're doing. I need you to have more skin in the game. Because if you do have more skin in the game, it actually empowers me to want to support.
Well, today I have none other than Dipo Ali. I'm so pleased, sir, that you are sitting here in front of me and we can chat a little bit. And really, this is going to be an awesome session. Dipo has a wealth of knowledge and experience. He's a trainer, he's a mentor, he's a coach, he's an entrepreneur. And I know his journey is going to benefit us today as we just interact with him. So maybe Dipo, just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Thank you, Thabani. But what I'll do first is actually to set the stage. So he's introduced me like I'm this person with many arts, just another person like you. So nothing special, just my work and experience has taken me to places where I believe that I could use that knowledge to help others as well. I'm currently the Executive Director of Black Business Ventures Association. Black Business Ventures Association is an organization that's dedicated in trying to help Black entrepreneurs across Western Canada who are going into like building their technology businesses. And it's something that I am not just the head, I'm also the co-founder of the organization. I'll kind of leave that as a high level of what I do right now, but my career, I've spent a lot of my time in finance, but intersectionalizing with business, entrepreneurship, raising capital. So I spent a lot of time in finance, and up until recently when I started to work with BBVA, which I also co-founded, I've been doing mostly finance roles.
Well, thank you for that, Dipo. So tell me how someone in finance, maybe doing a 9-to-5 job, one day wakes up and has a desire to move and change fields, because I see a lot of insecurity in that. You're nervous, you're thinking, how am I going to make it? There's no security, I can't do my 9-to-5. What got you to move and change roles from what you were doing in the past?
So I wouldn't necessarily say it's a change of role for me. I'm actually going back to what I originally wanted to do. Without trying to roll back a lot of background and context, the reality is that I'm doing finance because I studied accounting. Why? Finance was the more interesting part of what I cared as much about, and it was in accounting. So yeah, I'm in finance because that's what I studied in school. I have a bachelor's in accounting, and finance seemed to be the most interesting to me. However, originally, I would rather have been in entrepreneurship. You know, if anyone had gone in an African household, the expectation is that, if your parents had gone to school, you're meant to go to school, you're meant to graduate, you're meant to start your career, which was same for me, like many of people from an African household with educated parents. So I went to school, I graduated, I studied accounting because I felt that I liked it and that was the thing I was good at. And then I had to work. But upon graduating, I wanted to do business, but I didn't have anything. Like, it was just my parents that sent me to school. At that time, I'd actually lost my dad. And so I didn't know anything. I was a young, early 20-year-old, 20-plus-year-old, maybe 21, 22 when I graduated. Who am I to do business? I don't have any resources. And at that time, I had older ones where I couldn't even pay for myself. I'd actually go to them to pay for me. So, of course, I needed to get a job. And so what job do I get? Well, finance was interesting. So I started in finance. Coming back to doing what I do today, it's me trying to retrace my step back into what I've always cared about, which is entrepreneurship. Because I grew up in a household of entrepreneurs. My dad was a farmer. He ran business. From the moment that I started to understand what was going around me, it was always a business owner. So it's been something that has been interesting to me. So it's me finding my way back there.
Tell me about, and I want to double click a little bit on that African background, right? You and I have that as similarities. Now you moved to Canada. To tell me about the opportunities that you saw in Canada. What was the one thing that pushed you to, you know what, I think I can do this? You believed in yourself. Was there any other factors that drove you to getting to that place where you are going the entrepreneurship route?
So that's an interesting question. I think if we kind of continue from where I kind of stopped, where I said I needed to get a job, and I ended up actually working in finance. I did very core finance roles when I started. I worked investment banking for a couple of months, but then I saw an opportunity to do private equity, and I think I was also possibly looking at consulting because I felt maybe if I did some consulting, I'll be smarter, and maybe I'll be smarter to run businesses, right? I couldn't get into consulting. My grade level or whatever, it was really competitive, and I wasn't competitive enough as a recent grad to get in there. So next best option for me was like private equity. I ended up working with an investment firm, but it was an internal stuff. My responsibility was actually intersectionalizing finance with business, because what we did was, I'll say, even though it wasn't typical, we called it like principal investment. What we were doing was like a venture studio where we were the investors and where we were the ones that were creating those ideas. Because I was doing like a hybrid role of where have to do all this financial analysis, build financial model, try to kind of build like investment thesis for what you're doing. I also got an opportunity to actually work with this project and start it. And so while I did that, the most interesting part of me was that I actually enjoyed the business side more than the finance side. So even though it was a finance role, I had the opportunity to wear like a business hat where you're like a startup person and you're like, we needed to get this done, and you have some resources and you just go figure it out. It was that beginning part of which, taking me back to what I've always wanted to do, which was entrepreneurship. I got to do that, getting paid to doing that, because I got this job that had this hybrid component in it where we were actually building new companies and also kind of doing the analysis for investment. And I did that for about 3 years. So I'm coming back to Canada, of course, as a new immigrant, as a professional with a wife, a young family, we needed to settle. So you needed to just get the next job that's going to pay the bills to just live your life. So that was the priority, and that was what I did. But I've always had my eye to getting into the institution, and so I had an opportunity. So found my way back into finance and kind of evolved from there in a number of roles, and then eventually BBVA.
You have seen tons and tons of business and tons of business ideas. For that entrepreneur who's starting up, who's wondering how can they have that winning idea, what advice would you give them to have that winning business plan that's well thought out?
This, I'm going to say, is my opinion, because I'm not an expert here, because there are many people that know a lot more and have a lot more experience. But the way I see it, and just with my own experience, there are no winning ideas. There are never winning business plans. The reason why they are called plans is because it's a plan, and it's going to evolve, and it's going to change to all these different things. So I wouldn't necessarily say your goal is trying to find a winning idea. I'll actually take it the other way. And just even with my own experience, and I love to listen to founder story. One of my favorite podcasts is How I Built It by Guy Raz, and he just brings successful entrepreneurs and he just talks to them and they just go. When you hear these people that have started really successful businesses, you start to find patterns. The pattern that I noticed, which is my own biased opinion of it, is that it's not necessarily that they were trying to build this perfect business. They found a problem that they felt that they were in a good position to solve. Now, everyone has different motivation. Of course, we want to be business owners because we want it to be independent, we want to be financial, we want to be rich, we want to build wealth. I'm not saying all. Many of them didn't just build those businesses because of those reasons, but they built those businesses because they had a problem that they really wanted to solve. Before you getting into having a perfect business plan, before you getting into having a successful idea or an idea that's going to win you money, you need to ask yourself the simple question: do I care about this problem? Do I care? Do I see myself solving this problem? Because there's not going to be a perfect plan. You're going to have trials. You're going to have troubles. And you're going to struggle. And you'll be lucky if you get it done well. Because at the end of the day, you probably won't get yourself past those struggling stages when you start. The moment you start your business plan is already garbage. A whole lot of the assumptions that you have in there will not line up with the reality. And so why even try to build a perfect business plan? Why don't you start more internalizing to say, is this something that I care about? Is this something that I want to do? And then you build a business plan on that, but don't think that that business plan is going to be perfect.
Is there any room for passion? Because sometimes I've heard, different people say, if you're not passionate about it, don't even try it. What's your take on the passion side of things? So yes, I've collected all this data. Where is the room for passion?
There's no hard and fast rule. You can be passionate. It's wonderful. You don't need to be passionate. And when I say you don't need to be passionate, I'm coming from the perspective that you can still care about something. I guess when we say passion, the way we describe passion means different things to different people. Some say turn your passion to profit. Many of these linguas that you'll hear, do you just care about this thing? Forget passion or no passion. Do you care about it? I guess if you come from that perspective of do I care about it, we all have passions about many things. Actually, even when you do business, we actually have something that we care about, that we kind of may be passionate about. But it may not necessarily be that idea or that industry we're working with. I'll give you an illustration. I always actually enjoy building things, like, something that there's nothing in it, and then you build up. That's why I love startups, because you start with an idea with just a mere thought that you can do something. And then now you have companies, you have employees, you have people that are doing stuff. If I take away anything else that I don't care about, just the thoughts that I can come up with an idea, and then now you have companies and employees and salaries and buildings and all of that, that's enough passion for me. So for you, the passion may not necessarily be in the idea, it may be in the process, it may be in many of the other things. So passion may or may not have a place to play in the exact idea that you do. I may not be passionate about, say, washing clothes. Would I start a business about washing clothes? Well, possibly I could, because I'm passionate about seeing the idea of growing a business that washes clothes, but not actually the washing clothes part, right? So I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just my own jargon of saying that there's no hard and fast rule. Do you need to be passionate? Do you not need to be passionate? But you actually need to care about that thing that you want to do.
That's awesome. I've heard people say, yes, you care about it, but when you go out there to market, assume no one cares about your business. So with that in mind, how do you keep yourself encouraged when maybe you care about the business, you care about the processes involved in growing the business, but no one seems to care about your business. No one seems to care about your idea. How do you keep yourself encouraged?
Yes, no one cares about your idea. It's a fact. Like, even an investor, they care about making money from your idea. Well, you may find some people that actually like the thought of that business, but they care more about making money than they care about the idea itself, because that's the business they're into. So how do you motivate yourself? Why are you doing it? If you choose to pursue this thing, why? Like, what's your reason why you want to pursue this path? It's really hard to build business. And I'll say that for a fact. I grew up seeing my dad fail several times building business. I actually never grew up seeing him be successful building businesses, because it's always like, you're always trying to catch up. You're always trying to catch up. There's always that point of where, I made the sale, I made the profit. There's always a catch up. What keeps you sustained will be what keeps you motivated. I've had friends, I've had people that pursue businesses that are motivated by the outcome of the money that comes out of it. If that motivates you, that's absolutely fine. You're tapping into that. It's not just the money that motivates them. It's the value. What would I say? It's the achievement, like actualization. It's like what I've achieved, the achievement of what they get. Not necessarily just the financial part, but the fact that they go to that stage is what motivates them. Tapping into what motivates you. Make that your why. It's not that you won't stop, or it won't tell you to stop or not stop, but it'll keep you going when you need it. For many things that I've done that have worked, and for the things that I've done that have failed, I always had the wrong why. Every time I've been motivated by the financial outcome that I get directly, and I didn't really care about what I was doing, I failed. And it's happened over and over again. And then suddenly I started to realize that when I cared about what I did, it's not that I made financial benefits from it, but I was successful trying to do that. Caring about it was one that kept me going. But also secondly, I asked myself, why did I want to do this? And so my why was clear for me. I found ways to connect to why I'm doing something, even when it's tough. I can keep going. I'll give a simple illustration. There was a business that I and my wife did. Actually, it was during COVID, and we had to get loans. We lost all the money. It was $60,000. My wife was like, really, she was not happy. It was disadvantaged. I told myself, I said, you know what? When I looked at why we did this and what we went into it purely because we thought we were going to make money from it. We actually didn't care about it. Say, when we pick to choose what we want to do, we better care about it. Because otherwise, now that we're $60,000 in debt, that she had to go back to work to start paying off the debt, that would be an expensive lesson for us to really, truly ask ourselves, why are we doing this? Because at the end of the day, it felt more painful because we wanted to make money and we ended up losing money. So.
Now, how do you balance that? I like the way you brought in, your wife in there. Because now, maybe for yourself as an entrepreneur, you're thinking, okay, 60,000, that's okay, I'm going to learn a lesson. But now you have family, you have responsibilities, you're not born in Canada, So that means you have responsibilities from, your home country, your family, wherever they are, as a man, as an entrepreneur, whoever you are. So as a woman, you have responsibilities. How do you balance the personal side of things, the business side of things, family, the financial side of things? Again, it's personal and business. How do you balance that?
There are many people that have talked a lot about balance. And I think if you've looked at many successful entrepreneurs, you'll hear different stories. One person that I've always and still stands out for me is Michael Dell. I remember when I read one of his biographies or his story when he was talking about when he was young, he started building his business. He was actually a teenager. Right? I'm not so sure now of the exact time frame, but he was young, was 20-something, university age, but he built businesses. There were many people at his level that were also building businesses, and many of them lived a life where they couldn't feel that they could do that with family. He made that his mission, that he was going to build a family and he was going to build a business. My own theory is that there's actually no perfect balance. There never will be. But it does not mean that you don't aim for it. If what I'm going to do is not going to be aligned with the way the family was set together, maybe a deciding factor for me not to do it, even when it looks attractive. Because I don't want to build something and then not have a family that I care much more about lost. So that's one hard, fast rule I have for myself. The family has to be on board. What do I mean to be my wife? When I'm doing stuff, she's got to agree. I'm going to tell her it's going to be difficult. Oftentimes, many of the things that I've done and what I do right now has been with the support of my wife. Doesn't mean that it makes it easy sailing, but at least now I can cop out sometimes to say, you know what, I don't have the time, because remember we talked about this when we started. But we still have to always set the grounds and try to understand. There are times I'll be away, and there are times she's probably has to take care of the family with the kids. She's invested. Like, she knows what I'm doing. She knows why I'm doing it. She understands where we're going to. We have the same idea of where we want to get to. So as long as I'm sharing that big picture of my why and it makes sense and she supports me for that, that makes it easier. But it doesn't mean there's a balance.
How do entrepreneurs find funding? Like, what should I do as an entrepreneur thinking, I have a plan, it seems good, I've knocked at a couple of doors with the banks, but no one seems to be really funding this project? What advice would you give to that entrepreneur who is looking for funding?
From a very broad perspective, just think about this. If you were looking for funding, a bank, there's a reason why a bank will fund you, because they want to make sure that the capital comes back to them and they make profits. Be the person that's going to make them that profit. Turn the tables around and ask yourself, why would I be a bank and fund you? If you're being real with yourself, if you have a strong self-awareness, would you fund yourself if you were in their shoes? Have you shown enough to justify? Assume the person doesn't know anything else. What would you want to see in their person to be funded? I'm saying this as a high level because I know funding is probably the biggest challenge that many entrepreneurs face wherever you are from. But it's even a bigger challenge if you are living as a minority, as a Black in a place like Canada, where you have a smaller network. You may even have a smaller subset of people that actually understands where you are coming from. It's even a lot more tougher because you could lie and say, yeah, oh, it's a smart idea. This guy is smart. But be real. Will you fund yourself? Make yourself be that person that fits into the criteria of what that funder is. Everybody has an angle. The bank has an angle. The branch manager has an angle. If you're applying for grants, the grant organization has an angle. The reviewers of those grant organizations has an angle. Play it into their angle. Be that person that fits their narrative. And at least you've made yourself fundable. Don't go in there with your own bias, saying their life context, will I fund you? Then there are a lot of other factors, personal relationship and all of that, that makes this whole thing more complex.
Can you give a specific example where mentorship helped you in your journey?
My biggest mentor so far is my best friend. And I say that because we've been friends since we were in college. And I've always admired him. He ended up doing things that I didn't do. And so oftentimes I look at him and I'm like, you took risks that I was scared of taking. You did crazy things that I probably was like, I didn't have that heart to do it. I see the wisdom in him and I learn from him. Whereas mentorship comes in, first of all, we have values around similar things, right? In terms of what drives us, what motivates us, why we do stuff. He's probably a few steps ahead of me oftentimes, sometimes even more steps ahead. I just go ask him his experience and how it's been, because I know that we had similar values, and the fact that he had gone through it, I trust his perspective. And so, oftentimes, he's actually my biggest critic. I've actually never seen him support anything that I do, anyways. But I love the contrast of how he comes down and tells me all the different reasons why it doesn't make sense, because I actually learned from it. I still end up doing it anyways, but I learned from it.
Now, in this era that we're in now, tell me how AI has transformed the way you do business and how AI has expedited some of your behind the scenes work.
Okay, so this is an interesting question because I've got a couple of interns that work with me over the summer, and at some point they just say, Dipo, it looks like you just do everything AI. And I'm like, yes and no. AI is a tool for you. It's a tool that's not perfect. Maybe perfect in a few years' time, maybe it's not. I don't think it's actually going to be perfect. Well, if it becomes perfect, then it's doomsday. AI is going to take over the world. So I don't pray that it becomes perfect, actually. But AI as a tool can be used and wielded, but it's a machine. If you feed AI garbage, you get garbage out. If you feed AI intelligent stuff, you get even more intelligent stuff. It's one of these podcasts that I listen to very well. It's the Lenny's podcast from Lenny Ratrowski. And, I'm subscribed to him on his newsletters and his podcast. But the way he put it in the podcast, which I loved the most, which is the way I use it right now, is that AI is dumb the first time you're interacting with it. So you need to give it the context for what you want to do. Maybe you've encountered less than 1% of the knowledge that they've run through the AI. So the AI actually has a broader knowledge than you can ever have. The question is how can you leverage that knowledge and make the AI work for you? The AI needs to know what you're trying to do, which is your context, and it's natural language, which means you can talk to it like you're talking to a human being. I mean, AI knows HR and all of those things because it's read all those books. They've trained it. Context is very important for you to make the most for an AI. Rather than me trying to become an expert in that, I can actually leverage something that already has that knowledge. The way I've used AI in my work, in my day-to-day, is that I actually have a smart research assistant, which is the AI. It's so intelligent that he knows so many things, and then I'm like the driver. And I'm going to basically say I want to point the AI to where I'm going to because this smart guy knows it. So it's like, hey, I'm trying to recruit someone, or I've never done an onboarding plan for a summer intern before. What can I have on my onboarding plan? Because AI has learned all the different things about onboarding plans. It creates the onboarding plan for me. And it starts with the context. Then natural language, ask it like you're talking to a researcher. Hey, can you help me prepare a plan for this? And finally, tell AI the format. I want it to be in a report. I want it to be in a story. I want it to be a list. I want it to be, just give it the outcome. So context, what you need it to do for you, and the format that you want the outputs to look.
As a coach or a mentor, the people that you are leading, what is it that you're looking for where you are ignited by someone's traits or someone's ideas? What is it that I, as a emerging entrepreneur, should have that could cause that ignition for you?
So for different things that I've done, it depends on what hat I'm wearing, right? So if I wear the hat of a mentor, maybe I'm mentoring you as an entrepreneur, maybe as a Black entrepreneur, I want to see that you care more about what you're doing than I care about you succeeding. Of course, I care about you succeeding, but I need you to care more about what you're doing. I need you to have more skin in the game than I ever will be. Because if you do have more skin in the game, it actually empowers me to want to support. It actually empowers me to want to help. And it actually empowers me to want to make the extra mile or try to go above and beyond, because I see that you've put in all your all in. And so it's actually easier for me to help. It's actually easier for me to mentor. It's actually easier for me to say, hey, can you consider looking at this? And you're running and you're going to figure out that thing because you care so much more about it. But if I'm working with a founder, an entrepreneur, and I'm the one that's kind of pushing you to do stuff and you're not moving, oh no, it's not going to work.
What would you say you do in your spare time?
So I'm still not an entrepreneur in the way that I wish and I want to be. In my spare time, I try to find ways to be that entrepreneur. What do I mean? Right now, I work for BBB. I'm an employee like every other employee, but I actually want to have my own startup, my business that I run. If I'm not with the family and I'm trying to think of something serious and career-wise, I'm either trying to help someone in an intellectual way with their business, or I'm trying to figure out what that business is and I'm doing.
This is awesome. Now, in conclusion, what advice would you give to an entrepreneur who is maybe going through what you went through when you were new to Canada, when you started your first business, or when you made your first